Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast, a space for nurturing the ecosystem of business, body, and living. What would it be like if you gave your body a leadership role in your business and chose greater happiness every day? These are the conditions that create a healthy biome and a thriving business. I'm your host, Heather Nichols, and I'm so happy you're here. Hello, everybody. We're doing a live podcast this week for the Entrepreneurial Biome. I am on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook on my personal page and my business page on Facebook. And this is actually going to be the final, for now, episode, and we're calling it season 1 of my podcast adventure. It's more like season 5,000, but I've done so many radio shows and podcasts over the past 15 years or so. But we're gonna do. I'm launching a new podcast next week, and it's funny because it's not if you look at it from like an algorithm perspective or whatever, it's like, oh yeah, you're not really supposed to do that. Like you want to just keep going with what you've created and don't change it, so people can like find it and grow it and blah. And I just was like, no, it's time. It's time for the podcast to have a new name. A new name that's also an old name. So Entrepreneurial Biome has been absolutely amazing. I have loved this so much, and who knows, I could come back to it at some point, or maybe I'll post some here and there. Who knows? But I'm going to the podcast that will be going live starting next week is the Creation of Living, and Creation of Living is it was the podcast that I had before this was also the Creation of Living. So I like to change things for no good reason other than it's just time. It's time to change it up. And chaos is one of those things that so many people try to avoid in business. And it's actually, oh man, what a gift chaos is. Being willing to change things, being willing to mix it up, being willing to, just like, not have any reason and justification for why we do things, but actually the awareness of the energies of like, yeah, it's time to do this now, it's so liberating and refreshing. It's very much business done different, and the business of our lives, really. I mean, business from an access consciousness and joy of business point of view is really our whole life, and the way we create our lives is the way we create our businesses, is the way we create our lives. And if you try to do separation between your business and your life, work-life balance, all that stuff, it creates a lot of, it doesn't really acknowledge you as a whole being, as a whole creature. And I'm not saying work all the time, because that's not very fun either, to just be like constantly, on your computer or whatever. But what if work was actually fun, and joyful, and we could really have this creative adventure of creating a life and a living that is actually a way, like a form of business, And our bodies have this. So the topic of this is your body as your business partner. I may have even already done a podcast with that title. I don't know. I don't remember anything. So my team will have to tell me if that's the case, but it doesn't really matter. This is the newest version, the latest and greatest. But our bodies are so, I just am like, I could talk bodies all day, every day. Our bodies are so incredible. And most people do not see their bodies as incredible. They see their bodies as a burden, or even just like something that's kind of cool, but has to be managed. And sometimes there's problems or whatever. But our bodies are stunning, organisms of consciousness that actually have a consciousness of their own. And if you've listened to any of my stuff, you've probably heard me talk about this before, where our bodies have a consciousness of their own, and it is not the exact same thing as you, the being, and it's also not a separate thing. So there's no, like, words are a little tricky for giving voice to this, but the notion that, like, there's a consciousness and a wisdom of our bodies, that it's like an organism. It's like an animal. Animals just have this, they don't think, they can't talk, right? But they have this way of being. They have a lot of awareness. They move with a lot of energy. They can communicate, energetically and kind of psychically with us. And our bodies are quite similar in that way. And when we do business, a lot of times we really think about our heads, our minds, and going logical, and, really looking at, like, the pros and the cons. And, like, for instance, for my podcast, if I was going logical with it, I would be like, no, Entrepreneurial Biome has followers and there's people that like it. And the conversations are going to be very similar. It's an ongoing evolution. It's not like calling the podcast something different is going to really change a whole lot. But it just is time for, like, an energetic refresh, So, but I could be like, if I was sticking to, like, standard model business practice, I would be like, well, that's a bad idea, because I've spent over a year building this up, and now I'm just going to, like, start over, but I don't see it that way. And I include my body a lot in my creative endeavors and in the creation of my business. My body just never, ever lies. And one of the things about our bodies that's so incredible is they don't have a point of view. I mean, we might think that they do, but they really don't, because they don't. I mean, it's funny, because our brains are part of our bodies, but our brains don't, like, they don't, like, the function of your brain is more, the function of your mind isn't really about your brain. It's a different thing. Your mind is different than your brain. Our minds are more of a construct. They're more of this, like, thing that is there to keep reality in place, to keep us from being too, whatever that may be, too much, too different, too out of control, too much chaos, too much of a threat to other people, too successful, too whatever. We all have different points of view that we don't even know we're functioning from. And our minds run those stories and those storylines. And, we have this awareness of the world that we think is ours, and we think other people's stuff is ours. And we run this stuff all the time, and we don't realize that it's our mind, and it's all based on construct. Our bodies, because they don't think, our bodies can give us information in a very different way. And one of the ways that I was really beautifully introduced to this is when I was a somatic psychotherapist. So I studied body-centered psychotherapy, and I practiced it for 14 years. And that was, like, straight out of graduate school in the late 90s. I did a bunch of training in body-centered psychotherapy and body-centered trauma therapy, and really got to know, like, the nervous system. And the work that I did was very much about like, facilitating and unwinding through the body that would ripple out into the nervous system and ripple out into our emotional worlds and our relationships and everything that we do and be, and allow us to have this, like, depth of relaxation in our bodies, with our bodies, that would translate into everything in our lives. Trauma, healing trauma at a neurological level, all kinds of really incredible things. And when I started into that work, I always say, like, the bodies schooled me, the bodies educated me. because the bodies of the people that I worked with, they showed me that they knew how to unwind, that they knew how to heal. And this particular work that I did, and I do still sometimes, it was about getting people really present with their bodies and letting go of all the stories and all the like extraneous stuff, getting really present with their bodies, and then allowing their bodies to speak and to show us like where to go and what to look at. And this would be like a verbal, energetic exploration. And then with the trauma work, like the body would actually be like, this is where we need to go in the nervous system. And we could go to these places through the body, through body awareness and movement, like micro movement, to allow the nervous system to really, really unwind. And it was so cool because I would just sit with people and their bodies we would explore like a traumatic event. And then we would let go of all the stuff around it, all the emotions, all the stories and everything. And then their body would just do this beautiful, elegant, like unwinding. And it would be, a lot of times it would be through like involuntary micro movement and all this stuff. It was just so cool. And I started actually this podcast, like I started talking a lot more about this with the Entrepreneurial Biome. Because I kind of like, I wasn't really playing with that stuff for a while. When I really dove into Access Consciousness, I wasn't playing as much with this whole world of the somatic work that I know and do and love. And I am now bringing it together more. But the bodies that I worked with they just showed me time and time and time and time again, like, I know what I'm doing. I know how to heal. I know how to unwind. I know how to create. I know what I desire. I know. And it's when we get into our minds and we get into linearity and we get into thinking and we try to avoid the chaos that we are, and the chaos of how life is when you really listen to your body. When we function from all that, we cut off so much of ourselves. We cut off our being, we cut off our body and the wisdom of our being and the wisdom of our body. And we rely on all of these constructs and these storylines that really aren't really relevant to us in a lot of ways. And we try to create from there. And you could call it intuition, like ignoring your intuition. For me, it's way bigger than that, but intuition is a great way to kind of grok this, because when you are ignoring, we all know what it's like when you have an intuitive sense and you ignore it, it never turns out great. It's never quite, it's never really like one of those things that we're like, oh, yay, and so we all know, if you've played with this in any way, what happens when you don't listen to your knowing, basically. And your knowing comes through your being energetically, and it also comes through your body. And so including your body in the creation of your business and your life and living, it's amazing how much it adds. And it's where we really get to have joy. It's where we get to have ease. It's where we get to have glory. It's where we get to have the fullness of being alive. It's where we get to enjoy being on this planet, and listening to our bodies. One of the ways that I find so interesting is like when our bodies are like, my body's very particular about like the types of environments that she likes to be in, and like how I like to travel and what I like to surround myself with and who I like to surround myself with. And any time that I ignore that and I go into like the thinking and like being logical about stuff, it never works out. Like nothing ever fabulous comes out of it, But when I'm like, okay, body, and my body gets like excited about stuff, and it's like, it's really, enthused and alive and excited about, how, like, what could be, what is possible, what could be created, all those things. It's like, I get excited, and I start to create greater and more powerfully than I've ever created before. And things work, and there's more magic, and there's more possibility. And it's real. Like, this isn't just a fluffy conversation. Like, this to me is one of the most pragmatic conversations we can have, because it's this, it is. So I guess in a way, this is sort of like a segue into the Creation of Living podcast and Creation of Living conversation, which is going to be I'm launching a new website soon. It's so cool. I'm so excited for it. It's so beautiful. And it's going to be a lot of Creation of Living stuff. So there's going to be some really fun stuff to share. And as we play more with this idea of the creation of living, to me, the creation of living is always including your body, and letting your body give you feedback and information about what it knows, what it is, what it's aware of, what works for your body and what doesn't. And when we allow pleasure and hedonism and relaxation and intensity and like desire to be our guide, we really, we start to get more, like, creation is way more exciting. Business is way more exciting. Even if you have a job, because business, like I said in the beginning, business is the creation of your life and living. It's not just like, if you have a business, you have a business. If you are alive and breathing, you have a business, and it's called your life. It's what you do. It's what you create. It's how you live. It's the future that you would like to see. And so when we've talked a lot in Access Consciousness in the past, I don't know, year or so, year and a half maybe, about this idea of profit. And profit is, from this conversation, it's so different, because profit is not, I did a podcast last week on the gift of profit. I think it was last week, but profit isn't the money left over after the expenses. Profit, I mean, that's a very small way of looking at profit, but profit is the creation of a future and the gift that you bring to the world, be in the world, and receive. And when we be this gift of profit, like when we really do engage energetically and with our time and, money and our bodies and all that in the creation of a greater future, the monetary profit is a byproduct of that. It just comes as part of it. And our bodies know so much about this. And so with profit, there's so many things I would love to there's like a million different directions I could go right now. With profit, we each have a very unique awareness of a possibility of like what the world could be like. And I'm not really speaking to the people, those people probably aren't even listening anyway, but I'm not speaking to the people that aren't like, that just are like totally cool with like, get up, go to work, come home, have dinner, go to bed, rinse and repeat, for a lot of people in the world, the seekers of the world, I call them like humanoids or X-Men. That's just so, there's a lot of boredom that creeps in, and there's a lot of sense of like, that's way too small of a life, And then we tell ourselves we have to keep our lives small, or we try to keep our lives small because we think we have to, because the world doesn't match us. The world does not match who we are. And I would say from a trauma perspective, that's one of the greatest sort of traumas in a way, is that the world around us, that is constructed from the mind, is constantly invalidating us. And and any invalidation of your being is a form of abuse. And I don't mean to make it a big, like, I don't mean to downplay people that have been physically abused, or, there's so many different types of abuse. And this isn't about that, but it is abusive. We do live in an abusive world because it is not a world that readily acknowledges you as a being, as a different creature, as somebody who has creative possibility, as somebody who knows something that nobody else knows, as somebody who has a body that is an absolutely incredible organism of consciousness and expansion and possibility and healing and unwinding. I mean, that whole universe is also, you'll find a lot of conversations in the entrepreneurial biome and then coming up in the creation of living podcast about that, because that's a world that is just so fascinating to me. But you know, when living in a world that doesn't acknowledge any of that, when we know that that's what's true for us, and we're like, oh, my body really loves to feel good, you know, and my body, I love to be alive, and my body loves beautiful things, and you know, elegance and beauty and hedonism and pleasure and aliveness, and you know, and as we you know, as we explore and we give ourselves more permission to be that, it's a threat to people who aren't willing to. There's a lot of people, most people in the world, that just, they don't, they're, it's like, don't even go there, you know, do not go there. Do not, you know, bring that up. Like, don't make me look at how much more pleasurable my life could be, because I couldn't possibly choose that. Everybody around me, everybody in my life would get upset. I would lose people. Plus, I probably wouldn't be able to create it anyway, because I don't believe in myself anyway. I mean, there's a million stories that we tell ourselves and that the world tells ourselves as to why it's just a good idea to play small and to not go there. And so when we start including our bodies in creation, and we start including our bodies in the creation of our business and the creation of a future, it's a bit of an opening of a can of worms, you know, because we don't really, there's no roadmap for it, you know. And that's one of the things I talk about on my new website is I've been exploring off-road for 30 years, trying to honor the more that I know is possible, and including my body in that, and living in a very, very different way. And my life is so different than so many people, and amazing. And yet I still wake up every morning and desire more. And that's a reality for so many of us that is made so wrong. You know, it's like, can't you just be grateful for what you have? Well, yes, I am. And there's more. I'd like to be grateful for even more. I like even more gratitude in my life. And I can have more gratitude in my life right now by choosing it. And I can also have even more things in my life to be even more grateful for. And to me, that's something that I will continue to do until the day that I die. It's very different. I've always been that way. And I've always been made wrong by other people, and therefore myself, for having that. But what I've seen more and more lately, and especially, you know, it's funny because I'm 53, I'll be 54 next month. That doesn't really mean anything to me. I always joke that I'm 16. I mean, just from a, you know, I have that kind of, I just will always have that kind of youthful way of seeing the world and my life and myself and all of that. And so, but you know, I feel like my life is just beginning now. I am like, wow, now I have resources, I have wisdom, I'm willing to trust myself, you know, to the degree that I am now. And then there's always more of that too. I have tools. I have this incredible relationship with my body, and I have awareness, and I am willing to, I have allowance for myself. I'm willing to give myself the allowance to be desiring more than almost everybody that I know on a daily basis, you know. And I'm so grateful for Access Consciousness and Gary Douglas and Dane Heer specifically, because they have shown me, Gary Douglas and Dane Heer are the co-creators of Access Consciousness, like the founders of it. Gary Douglas is the main founder. He's started it 30 plus years ago. he also has that way of being. And they've shown me over the years, they've invited me over the years to the difference that I be with that. And so, for me, I like to turn around and do that with other people as well, because I think the seekers of the world are so dissatisfied by the status quo, rightfully so, rightfully so. The world, I don't know that very many people would say it's in a great place right now, and there's a lot of disagreement about what the future is that we need to have. That will always be the case. There will never be a time where we're all in agreement about the future that we need to create. But that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of the diversity of the world, is that each one of us knows something different. And we have a different awareness. We know something different. And it's our greatest asset and our greatest gift. And it's also the thing that we cut off the most. And it's so ironic, so in a way, it's like, it's so helpful to have other people who have walked the path and explored that, the difference that they are, and have tools and awareness, and we can all contribute to each other in that way. Because living and functioning from that it's really a tall order on a daily basis. And yet at the same time, it's one of those things that creates incredible happiness and ease and joy. And it unlocks magic everywhere we go. And it opens possibilities, and it allows us to have a life, the life that we know we can have. And so to be, 53 and be like, wow, I've not even started with what I'd like to create. That's exciting to me. It's not a diminishment of what I've created so far. It's not a tragedy. It's so exciting to me. And there's so many things I would like to create that I have no idea how I'm going to, but I know that I will. There are so many things I'd like to create that I don't have the financial resources to do in the way that I would like to do at the moment. And I know that I will, but I don't know how. But I do know that if I include my body in that, and if I know what I know, which is it's like the only thing I can go on, and that's not a diminishment of it. That's an acknowledgement of the greatness of each one of us as a unique creature. If I rely on me, if I trust me, if I listen to me, what I know, what wakes me up in the morning with an exuberance and an enthusiasm and gets me so excited about living in the world and being on the planet and being with other people, that is really big. And it's the gift that we all have that most of us don't allow ourselves to have, don't allow ourselves to pursue, because it feels sometimes it feels impossible. Sometimes it feels like we'll lose everybody in our lives. There's so many stories that we have about why that doesn't work, so you can listen to those stories and continue to have a life that feels kind of lackluster, boring, uninspiring and uninspired, or take the freaking plunge, and roll up your sleeves to the adventure of creating your future, your living, the world that you desire to see. And you can't create the world without creating that for you. The only person in the world you have control over is you. And I wouldn't even recommend really trying to control yourself. I would actually recommend being chaos. But that's part of what happens when we listen to our bodies and we listen to our being, we listen to ourselves and what floats our boats, what's exciting to us, what's pleasurable to us. And as we do that, like, our bodies unwind in these beautiful ways, and our businesses flourish, the business of our lives flourish, our relationships flourish. Sometimes people fall away. Sometimes you have to lose people that don't want to come along for the ride. That's okay. Why value holding on to other people over the exploration of what's actually true for you. It's like, now's the time. Now is the time. And what I've seen for myself is, when I don't do that, when I don't listen, when I don't give myself permission to really go and to really explore and to really choose to live from choice, I'm not happy, and I'm not willing to live unhappy. I don't understand why anybody would be. And yet people are just numb, And so when you include your body in the creation of your living and your business and all of that, you've got to be willing to get over the numbness, because, and it's one of the reasons we cut ourselves off from our bodies, is because we don't desire to, feel, to know all these things, it's like opening a can of worms. It's just like, I don't want to open up that can of worms, because I might need to change a lot of things. I might need to be confronted with the fact that I don't know how to create what I want to create, but I know I want to create it. I might be confronted with, I don't have the resources currently, or I might need to choose things that are threatening to people in my life, or I might be, right up against my own unwillingness to be an allowance of myself and to have intimacy with myself. So when we go there and we're like, okay, I'm in, I'm going to go, I'm going to do this. There's a lot of stuff that can come up. And the beauty of that is that as you move through it, there's a lot of beautiful tools for that. As you move through it, new futures, greater futures, more choices, more possibilities, a greater chaos, a greater space of contribution opens up continuously. And it's not a direct line. It's not a linear path. You cannot know how, you cannot know where. You can only just choose what's in front of you, and know you may not think you can even choose what you'd like to choose. But as soon as you actually choose something, things start to change. And that's one of the realities that, again, Access Consciousness has been so amazing for me, to show me, to educate me about choice and how choice works. Because living from choice is very different, very different. And it's not a reality that any of us grow up knowing how to live. And we have to show ourselves, and we do. It is helpful to have education around it, like to be invited to what we know with some education. It's more like unlearning, so that you can access what it is that you do know, and start to have choice as this incredible power tool that just opens doors right and left. And that's the chaos, is choosing something when you have no idea how it's going to show up. But as soon as you choose, the whole universe starts to rearrange itself on your behalf. And you can live from that. You can live from that. That is one of the most amazing things. It's such an incredible gift. I could go on and on and on. There's so much here. There's so many conversations, and you can look back in the archive of Entrepreneurial Biome podcasts and, dive deep. It will still be on my website. It's heathernichols.com/podcast. And next week, in case you joined after I announced this podcast is it's going to be considered season 1. Season 2 is the Creation of Living podcast that I'm going to be launching next week. And I'm going to also be doing, I have some business classes coming up and body classes as well. You can see it all on my website, heathernichols.com/events. There's a Generative Business Pods, which is a 6-month business program that's starting at the end of February. The topic of this one is the gift of profit, being the gift of profit. So really exploring like a lot of this is kind of a introduction to that, let's say. And there's going to be some different stuff this time. in this program. It's a program that I do every 6 months. We start a new one. It's just one of those things that is just a massive gift to me and to the people that do it. So I keep doing it. And this one is going to be, I think it starts on like the 24th of February, something like that. We're going to be bringing I'm going to be bringing a lot more body conversations and body tools into this round of the business pods. So there's going to be one call every month that is like a specific exploration of the body and including your body very directly in what you're creating. And then there's like small group facilitations and big group facilitations and one-on-one private sessions. It's a really robust group and a beautiful place to play with other people who are really going for it in the creation of what they would like to have as a future. And being supported, having the support of other people is so amazing, especially when it's people that are willing to be different and create from a different space and asking for more chaos and more following of their knowing and creating from being and including their body and all these things. So I'm excited for the next round, and there's going to be a free call February, I don't know, I think it's like the 19th or something like that. And so that is also on my website. You can sign up for that. I don't remember what the link is to that, but the business pods is generativebusinesspods.com or heathernichols.com/businesspods. There's a landing page there that has all the information, including where to sign up for the free call. And yeah, I'm really, there's so many people that have shriveled and shrunk. There's been the past 4 or 5 years has been there's been such a degeneration in our world. And it's been interesting. It's been a very interesting time, like no other that I've seen. And I think a lot of people have gotten kind of stuck into this sense of like, this is just how it's going to be now, And I just realized for myself the other day, I was like, because I've definitely had struggles of my own in the past 5 years that have been different from before. Like I've noticed, there's just so many places where where degeneration seems to be kind of like par for the course. And like, yeah, everything's just going to be mediocre, even more mediocre than it was. So, we're going to do that now, and I've looked at it and I was like, wow, like this is just a moment. This is a moment in time. And it's time for something different. And I know the power of choice, and I'm choosing that in a huge way now for myself more than ever. And I like playing with people that have that sense of, let's call it hope, and possibility, that it's just, sometimes things need to fall apart, and they have been. And now it's time for something different, something greater, something more. Something that acknowledges the beauty of being alive and the beauty of our bodies, where true happiness is accessible for way more people on the planet. And the joy of being alive is something that is valued, not shunned, not judged, and something that people actually have the resources to choose and to know how to create that. And that I won't stop ever in creating that in my own life and inviting the world to it. And I love playing with other people who are like, yes, let's go. Let's go. So if you're one of those people, let's go. So thank you so much for listening. Whether you're here live or this will be posted as a podcast, in later today, I guess, or whatever, with all the music and all that stuff. And then we'll have Creation of Living podcast starting next week, a new website coming at the end of the month, generative business pods. I've got 3-day body classes in the US and Mexico and Europe coming up, and a bunch of really cool stuff. Some more body-centered classes as well, live and online. All kinds of amazing ways to tap in and play and create and really get the support for being as different as you are and desiring as much as you actually desire and making that your reality. Let's do it, guys. Let's live. All right. Thanks everybody so much for being here with me live. Lisa, I see your comments. Thank you so much. And yeah, what else is possible, truly? And see you next time. Bye for now. Thank you for joining me for the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. For more resources, check out my website at heathernichols.com and my social media channels as well. Have a beautiful day, and remember that your business thrives when you do.